Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Got a new Cardfight Vanguard Divinez anime review for you guys today. Today we're covering Season 3, Episode 9, Wings of Salvation and the Skyfall Night, which is a funny title considering how the fight of this episode ends. So this episode starts off with not very much setup. We actually get into the fight pretty quick, and spoiler alert, Akina gets destroyed by Rika. Which is funny because, I mean, everybody expected Rika to win because, you know, he's Rika. But, man, it is bad. But if you guys enjoy this kind of video, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's jump in and let's talk about the episode. So the episode starts off with a flashback of Rika winning the second deluxe. And we see a bunch of his achievements. Fights that he's won, interviews, things like that. And while all of that's well and good, you know, Rika is thinking about his last match. His last match in this current deluxe, he actually lost to Kagetsu, which again shows how much of a beast Kagetsu actually is. But Rika approaches Kagetsu and talks about him, you know, Kagetsu being a pro fighter, and when he was a pro, we all knew that he rivaled Michiru. Turns out Kagetsu actually beat Michiru, and this was so many years ago that Rika was a kid in the stands watching that fight. And it was Kagetsu that ended Michiru's winning streak. So that's pretty cool. You know, Kagetsu's a beast. We knew this. But Kagetsu tells Rika, you know, it's a big world. There's all kinds of powerful fighters. Some you haven't even seen before. And Rika's like, he knows that. He's experienced that. It's kind of like what Gui and Jinky were kind of trying to do with the whole deluxe, talking about front fighters, you know, the pro fighters that everybody knows about, and the counter fighters, the unsung heroes, the people that are like playing in the background, just playing, you know, not in major tournaments, but are still nasty. And it's kind of cool to see these guys kind of making a reference to the same thing. Rika, you know, finds out that Michiru is back. Michiru's out there whooping ass, and this motivates Rika, because you guys all know Rika's whole motivation is to catch up to Michiru and eventually beat him. We jump over to Akina, getting ready for his match, and we see Kagetsu show up to Akina, offers him a drink. He had mentioned getting him a drink a couple episodes ago. And he still asks if Akina has found his reason to play Vanguard. Akina still says no, but Akina's ready for this next fight. He's going to, you know, continue to try and discover his reason to play Vanguard. We see all of Akina's friends cheering for him, trying to hype him up. They do this funny ass dance, and we jump right into the card fight. So we got our starters. Akina is, of course, using Wings of Aspiration Soul, the starter he's had since the beginning of Divinez, and we get to see that immediately Rika has a new ride line. This is Unsullied Eyes Youth. For anybody that's never seen my episode reviews, we do skip the draw for turns and the ANG charge 3 for turn. They don't make a big deal about, you know, emphasizing it in every turn, so a lot of times we just skip it, just assumed that they happened. And the only resource that's a little annoying to keep track of in this game ends up being energy. I will do my best to guesstimate what has an energy cost, but there will be some room for error, guys, so I'm sorry about that. Anyway, right to the fight. So first turn, Rika rides Squire of Spear Streak's Youth, and then immediately ends his turn. Turn 2, Akina rides Patrol of Gus Ventesta, and he calls Stern Lance Severus. Akina attacks with Ventesta, Rika doesn't guard. Akina doesn't get a trigger, Rika takes 1 damage. Akina then attacks with Severus, Rika guards, turns over, the damage is now 0-1, Akina takes a small lead. Turn 3, Rika rides Sorrowful Ardent Light Youth, and this is where we get to see the skill of his grade 1. When this unit is rode upon, Soul Blast 1, the top 5 cards of the deck, call a card with the same grade of your Vanguard or lower. Rika calls this new card. This is actually a new card that gets introduced here. I'm going to butcher this name. Dyed Lijic. It's spelt like guide, but with a D, so Dyed or Guide, and then Lijk. Mad weird. So I'm just gonna go Dyed Lijic. But Rika uses Guide Lijic's skill. When called, counterblast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add 1 unit with Youthberk in its card name from the top 5 to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Rika adds Revolve Form Exist to hand. Rika then calls Knight of Vanquish Bow's Filth. Rika attacks with Youth. Akina doesn't guard. Rika doesn't get a trigger. Rika attacks with Dyed Lijic. Akina guards. Turns out the damage is 1-1. It's even. So I forgot to mention at the beginning of the fight, Rika tells Akina that he, you know, puts everything he has into his fight, no matter who he's going up against. And Akina, at this point in the fight, tells Rika that he feels the same way, and he's also going to give it his all. But turn 4, Akina rides Knight of Great Advanced Ascensior. Akina uses Ventesta's skill. For anybody that doesn't know Ventesta's skill, when this unit is rode upon by Knight of Great Advanced Ascensior, call this card to rearguard, Soul Charge 1. So Akina calls out the Ventesta. Akina then calls Knight of Bowstreaks Nobiris and Knight of Piercing Cadwalla. Akina attacks with Ascensior. Rika doesn't guard. Akina gets the draw trigger, giving the 10k power to Cadwalla and drawing an extra card. Rika takes 1 damage. Akina attacks with Nobiris. This one Rika guards. Akina then attacks with Cadwalla. Rika doesn't guard and takes 1 damage. Then Akina uses Cadwalla's skill. Auto rearguard at the end of the battle. This unit attack the Vanguard. If you have 4 or more units, Soul Blast 1. Retire this unit. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 a grade 2 or greater card from among them. Put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck. If you did not reveal a card, draw a card. With this skill, Akina adds another copy of Nobiris and then ends his turn. The damage is now 3-1 with Akina back in the lead. Now, Rika hit Akina with some truth. This part was actually pretty cool. Rika tells Akina that he has analyzed all of his fights up to this point. He has been preparing for this fight. But he knows that Akina did no prep work. And he even calls him out on it. And while Akina, says that he puts his all into a fight, Rika's version of putting his all into a fight is doing everything possible to win, even before the fight even happens. So I actually respect this a lot from Rika. He, did his research. He got notes. He got notes. But turn 5, Rika rides Youthberk Skyfall Arms Rebuild. This is his new Youthberk Grade 3, and it is definitely an upgrade from OG Youthberk in one sense. We'll talk about that in a second. Rika uses the skill of his new Grade 2 ride line. Now, this one, I don't see any Combo Blast. I don't see any Soul Blast. I'm assuming this is an Energy Blast. Don't know how much because we don't see Rika use too much energy in this entire, whole thing. But I'm assuming this is an Energy Blast. But you get to add a Grade 2 or lower from the drop to the hand. He adds another copy of Died Legit and then calls it, and then uses its skill to Counter Blast 5 with the top 5. This time he adds a second copy of Rebuild to hand. So this is why I know it's a Youthberk card that it adds, which is cool because that gives him Persona right for next turn. Rika then attacks with Died Legit and uses its second skill, Auto Rearguard. When this unit attacks, if you have a Grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Youthberk in its card name, this unit gets 5,000 power until the end of that battle. Akina guards. Rika attacks with Youthberk. Akina doesn't guard. Rika gets a front trigger on his drive check and giving 10k to his front row. Akina takes 1 damage. Now, we get a peek into Rika's mind state. Being a pro doesn't really mean too much to him, especially not right now in this fight. His goal is to reach Michiru's level and to eventually surpass him. Rika says that if he holds on to the past, he'll never be able to move forward. And this is where we get a boss-ass ride animation when Rika uses Revol Dress. Now, the Revol Dress for Skyfire Arms Rebuild is a little bit different than the original Skyfall Arms. This one is Auto Vanguard. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked, choose a card with Revol form in its card name from your hand or drop and ride it as stand, and it gets -2 drive until end of turn. OG Revol Dress was only from the hand. Only from the hand, so that's a big upgrade there. Now, that's a big upgrade, but we're also losing out on Skyfall Arms' original skill, which was, discard a card, look at top 3, either call a dude or add 1 to hand. But I don't know what other possible effects the Grade 3 has because he doesn't use any other ones. But Rika rides Youthberk Revol form exists and uses its skill. When this unit is placed on Vanguard by Revol Dress, choose one of your rear guards and stand it. This might also have an Energy Blast cost because he doesn't use any Soul, he doesn't use any Counter Blast. It could also not have a cost at all, which would be cool. I'd be okay with, considering, you have to jump through hoops to get this skill. But also, your front row gains 10k until end of turn. That's kind of crazy. And then lastly, you can discard a card, and if you do, Exists gets +1 drive. Well, not +1 drive, his drive becomes 1. So this lets it combo with the Grade 1 that Revol Dress already has, that gives you a drive check to allow you to get twin drive. So I think that's completely fair, as a lot of the Revol forms, already have ways to get drive checks. This one having one built in, and a discard to get an extra drive check, that's standard restander talk. Rika discards Wayward Therapy Angel and uses its skill when discarded. Auto, when this card is discarded from hand during your turn, if your Vanguard is Grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 1 and call this card to a back row rear guard. And then Rika uses Filth skill. Auto back row center. When your Vanguard is placed on the Vanguard circle by the Revol Dress ability, stay in this unit, and this unit gets 10,000 power until end of turn. Rika then attacks with Exist. Akina doesn't guard. Rika doesn't get a trigger. Akina takes 1 damage. Rika then attacks with Dead Legit. Akina doesn't guard and takes 1 damage. Akina gets a heal on his damage check, recovering 1 damage and giving 10k to his Vanguard. Rika then attacks with his second Dead Legit. Akina doesn't guard and takes 1 damage. At the end of the turn, Rika re-rides into Rebuild from his soul, except this time he binds Exist. That's new. Normally the cards just stay in soul, but keep that in mind for later. The damage is now 3-4. Rika is in the lead. Akina thinks Rika is amazing, doing so much to win. Akina remembers some of his older fights where he did a lot of prep work trying to win and working so hard, and we get a whole flashback of him with now trying to get to the level of everybody else. And we kind of see that Akina has actually fallen off as far as the amount of effort he puts into his fights. But Akina rides Faded One of Miracles, Raziel, and then uses Ascensor's skill. Auto when this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 with Raziel in its card name. Choose 1 grade 2 or less from your drop, call it to rear guard. From the drop zone, Akina calls Knight of Gentle Beauty Nobia and uses its skill. Auto when this unit is placed on rear guard. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Raziel in its card name, counterblast 1 with the top 3 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 grade 3 or less card from among them, call it to rear guard, and put the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. And if it is your battle phase, put it into your hand instead of calling it. So with this skill, Akina calls Aerial Sage behind his Vanguard, and then Akina pauses for a minute, looks at his hand, and decides at this point to not use his Divine skill. When I first watched the episode, I didn't know what he was doing, but Rika calls him out on it at the end of the turn. So, real quick explanation, Akina was going for the move he did to beat Kuon, where he saved his Divine skill till later in the turn, where he can filter through more of his deck and send more crits back to increase his chance of getting triggers on his big turn. But Rika makes a point when we get back to Rika's turn. So, Akina attacks with Nobiris, Rika guards, Akina uses Nobiris' skill, auto rearguard at the end of the battle. This unit attacked if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Raziel in its card name, Energy Blast 3, put this unit into your soul, draw a card, look at the top card of your deck, put it to the top or bottom of your deck. Akina draws a card, and then he stacks a card on top of his deck. Akina then attacks with Raziel and uses its skill. Auto Vanguard, where this unit attacks a Vanguard, counterblast 1, choose up to 2 cards from a drop with different grades, and total grade less than or equal to the number of cards in your damage zone. Call them to rear. Akina calls another copy of Nobiris and another copy of Severus and uses Severus' skill. Auto when this unit is placed on rear guard by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Raziel in its card name, Soul Blast 1. All of your front row units get 5,000 power until end of turn. Rika guards Raziel with a perfect guard. Akina gets a critical trigger, gives the power and critical to Nobia. Akina attacks with Nobiris. Rika doesn't guard, takes 1 damage. Now, they do not announce it. This always bothers me when they do this in episodes. But at this point, Akina does use Nobiris' skill, to draw a card, stack the top card of his deck, and he uses Severus' skill. Probably not in that order. He probably would use Severus' skill first, then Nobiris, so that way he can draw and then draw and stack instead of messing up his stack. But Severus' skill, auto rearguard at the end of the battle. This unit boosted. If this unit was placed on rearguard by the ability of a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Raziel on his card name this turn, bind this unit, draw a card. So after the Nobiris column swung, he would have bound Severus, drew, and then sent Nobiris to soul, draw a card, and then stack the last card on top and bottom of his deck. Akina then attacks with Nobia. Now Nobia has the critical along with his own power boost. Rika guards with another perfect guard. The turn is over. The damage is now 4-4. And now Rika points out that Akina didn't use the Divine skill, like I had mentioned earlier. That in his last fight, he waited so he can increase his trigger count against Kuon, like I had mentioned. But Rika explains that while that strategy makes sense, it makes him more vulnerable to attack as he's waiting on his miracles. So, because he's on the back foot against Rika, he's already at 4 damage. Rika's got a big turn coming. He's got a 5 attack turn, which is crazy. I'm actually kind of happy they gave that to Youthberk. But he could have used his Divine skill to potentially survive the following turn. But Rika basically tells Akina he needs to be more flexible. He needs to be able to adjust his strategy as the world and the games change around him. Circumstances are always changing. And that's actually a big thing in all card games. You needed to be able to adjust your strategy, what you're going to do if shit doesn't go your way. But turn 7 is actually final turn. So Rika Persona rides Youthberk Rebuild. Rika calls Bard of Brave Instruments Korono. Rika attacks with Died Legit. Akina guards. Rika attacks Rebuild. Akina guards. Rika gets a critical trigger, giving both effects to another Died Legit. Rika then uses Revol Dress and rise into exist again. Using its skill, Rika stands Died Legit, ends Filt, and discards a card to give exist a drive check, and then he reveals a new skill for exist. So remember how exist gave 10k to the front row? So that changes. If you have a Revol form bound, it's 20k instead of 10k. And if the card that is bound is exist, he gains a critical. Yes, they gave a 5 attack deck plus 20k and a crit. Granted, it's a turn 4 skill, but even before that, he still was able to give 10k to his front row and a crit. Like, this is nasty. Rika attacks with Died Legit that he gave the critical to. Akina guards with the perfect guard. Rika attacks with exist. Akina guards for a 1 to pass. Rika gets a draw trigger on his 1 drive check, giving the power and the effects to exist. And we get to see this hard ass scene of Skyfall Arms attacking Raziel, and Rika hits Akina with the craziest bar, and he says fall to the ground, which is funny because, like I said, the name of the episode was Wings of Salvation and the Skyfall Night, and he literally just said, with Raziel in the air, sit down, and he made the sky fall. Akina takes 2 damage and loses. The game is over. This game went by super fast. We didn't actually see a whole lot of crazy tricks, considering these are Keter decks. That's surprising. But Rika was just so aggressive that he just beat the ever-living shit out of Akina. But, everybody's shocked and like wowing by Rika's strength. And then we see Akina bow to Rika and thank him for the experience. And he's, going over the game in his head and what he could have done different. And he just tells Rika, this was a great experience. Rika bows, says thank you for the good game. So we might see some potential growth from Akina. A lot of people point out that while Akina has gotten better and you do see him use more competitive cards, he still is a novice compared to everybody else. Everybody else has years and years of card fight experience. Akina's only had, the last 2 seasons. So we might actually see him refine his strats and his deck even more. So who knows? We'll see it. Now, I gotta tell you about the part that pissed me off. So next, we see Now getting ready for her fight, and she literally gets off-screened. And we just see the results of her fight, and she loses to Gui. Varga Dragres Rakshasa loses to Serafogila. She loses to the damn tree dragon. Mind you, I love the tree, but wow, off-screened is crazy. Then we see the next matchup where Senka beat Suo. Senka hasn't won a single fight in the series, and you're going to tell me that she off-screened Suo? Blasphemy. Utter blasphemy. But we do see, after the match, before they go anywhere, Suo asks her to fight him again, and she says, cool, we can fight. Let's go fight in the back. And then we see the one matchup that we did expect, which was Kagetsu versus Kuon, and Kagetsu wins. Kagetsu's a dog. He's just running through everybody in this tournament. But we see as Kagetsu walks away that he's got this lifeless look on his face, like he doesn't even care about the fact that he just won. So it's a little sus. It still makes me wonder what happened to him. But we jump over to Akina, and we see Akina in his room looking at his deck, and we see him thinking about his motivation to play again. Or, in this case, thinking about Rika's motivation to play, to catch up to his rival and eventually surpass him, his hero. And this starts to trigger something in Akina. He says, I might be close to fighting something. And we also get this scene of him with the Griffin card that Kagetsu gave him, and, they're almost like hugging. And he's just like, just wait for me a little longer, I'm almost there. Last thing we see in the episode is Kagetsu by himself looking over, a river, and it's the middle of the night. Now shows up, and he's like, don't you have a match to prepare for? And she's like, yeah, you do too, but why do I feel like your heart's not in it? And then she asks him, why did you give up pro card fighting? And the episode immediately ends. I was hurt. I was like, what the F? But there was no next time. There was an after credit scene. But it's an after credit flashback scene where we see Kagetsu in the outfit it shows him in all the old flashbacks. but he's standing in front of the, Carnival Park area where Blackout usually hangs out, but it's all like decayed. So this must be where he started Blackout. So next episode is probably not gonna have a card fight. It's probably gonna be all backstory for Kagetsu, which his backstory is probably the one I'm most interested in, because they made a really, really cool character, and I'd love to see like what makes him tick, because he looks like dude has been through some trauma. So because there's no card fight, if you guys don't want me to cover the episode, I'll skip next week. We'll cover this episode, we'll cover the next coming episode and the next card fight all in one shot. Or if you guys want me to talk about what happens in that episode, let me know down in the comments and I'll be sure to cover it. Guys, if you want to check me out on social media, those links will be down below. If you guys want to see me play some Cardfight Vanguard live or come play with me, this week's stream will be Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I would love to have you guys. I want to try this out, so hopefully we get it right away on Cardfight area. And of course, we still have some other decks to try out. Guys, that's it for me. I'll catch you guys on this video. Later.
See it in my eyes, I was born for this. I got demons on my side, you ain't right like this. I got reason to believe, I don't need it from my gifts. Only I can change the world and it go like this.